You ever work your butt off for years, save every penny, finally buy your dream house, only for your dad to show up and say, "Hey, you should give that to your sister, she deserves it more." No? Well, buckle up, Reddit, because that's exactly what happened to me. I'm Brandon, 32, and this is the story of how my dad, Charles, decided that my house, yeah, the one with my name on the deed, should belong to my golden child sister, Samantha, because, in his words, it's only fair. Spoiler alert. It didn't end well for him. Let's rewind a bit. I grew up in a family where fairness was whatever Charles decided it was on any given day, and usually, that meant Samantha got everything, and I got life lessons. Samantha was the classic golden child. She could crash a car and somehow get praise for her learning experience. Meanwhile, if I so much as left a dish in the sink, Charles would act like I'd committed a federal crime. But hey, I learned early that if I wanted anything in life, I'd have to earn it, because no handouts were coming my way. So that's exactly what I did. I worked through college, climbed my way up in my career, and after years of grinding, I finally hit that milestone, buying my first house. Not a mansion, but a solid, beautiful place I could actually call mine. The kind of place that makes you feel like all those sleepless nights and skipped vacations were finally worth it. Of course, like any semi-decent son, I invited Charles over to see it. You know, thinking maybe, just maybe, he'd be proud. Big mistake. The moment Charles walked through the door, he didn't say, "Congrats," or, "I'm proud of you, son." Nah, he looked around, nodded, and said, "This would be perfect for Samantha." I laughed, because I thought he was joking. Spoiler, he wasn't. Charles went on about how Samantha was struggling, translation, blew through her savings on nonsense, how she deserved a fresh start, and how I, being the responsible one, should step up and give her my house. Bro, I thought I'd heard it all growing up in that circus, but this was a new level of entitlement. I told him flat out, "That's not happening, Dad. I bought this house for myself." Charles didn't miss a beat. "Brandon, don't be selfish. You'll land on your feet, you always do. Your sister needs this more than you." Oh, so now my hard work was just a safety net for Samantha's bad decisions. I shut the conversation down and showed him the door, literally. I figured that was the end of it. Just another ridiculous Charles moment I could laugh about later. But I underestimated just how far he'd go to make sure his precious Samantha got what she deserved. Because a week later, I came home to find a locksmith at my front door, hired by my own father. So there I was, just a regular day, heading home from work, thinking about what leftovers I was gonna demolish for dinner. I pull up to my driveway, and that's when I see him. Some random dude, let's call him Dave the locksmith, standing at my front door, tools out, clearly mid-job. At first I thought, weird, wrong address maybe? But then I saw Charles standing right next to him, arms crossed, looking like he was supervising a home renovation. I parked, got out, and asked the obvious. What's going on here?" Charles turned around, completely unfazed, like I was the one interrupting his day. "Oh, Brandon, you're early. We're just getting things sorted for Samantha." Sorted? For Samantha? Bro, I thought my brain was gonna short circuit. I looked at Dave, who suddenly realized something wasn't adding up. "This is your house?" he asked, looking nervous. I pulled out my keys, unlocked the door, because, you know, I live there, and said, "Yeah, it's my house. Who exactly permitted you to change my locks?" Dave looked at Charles, who dared to act annoyed, like I was making this difficult. I told him I was the owner's father. I'm doing what's best for the family. Best for the family? Nah, Charles, you're doing what's best for Samantha, like always. I turned back to Dave, who was now clearly sweating bullets. "Did he show you any proof that he owns this place?" Of course, he hadn't. Because there wasn't any. Dave apologized a dozen times, packed up his gear, and practically ran to his van, probably realizing he was 2 seconds away from being part of a lawsuit. Now it was just me and Charles. I asked him, half out of disbelief, half because I wanted to hear what kind of mental gymnastics he'd come up with. "What the hell were you thinking?" Charles, without missing a beat, hit me with, "I was thinking like a father. Samantha needs stability, and you're being stubborn. I'm just taking initiative since you clearly won't do the right thing. Bro, he said that like he deserved a Father of the Year award. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just favoritism anymore, this was attempted theft. I told him flat out. If you or Samantha steps foot on my property again without my permission, I'm calling the cops. Charles rolled his eyes because in his world, consequences were for other people. Don't be dramatic, Brandon. You're really going to call the police on your father? Oh, absolutely. And I made that crystal clear. I slammed the door in his face and immediately called my lawyer. Because if Charles thought this was over, he had another thing coming. By the next morning, I had security cameras installed, changed the locks myself, and made sure every legal document tied to my property was airtight. But of course, Charles wasn't done. Because when entitled parents get told, no, they don't reflect, they escalate. And the next move? He brought Samantha into the mix. Like I was supposed to magically cave once she batted her eyelashes and cried about how life isn't fair. After shutting down Charles's locksmith stunt, I figured he'd at least have the decency to back off for a while. But nah, this is Charles and Samantha we're talking about. The king and queen of entitlement don't know how to take an L quietly. 2 days later, my phone started blowing up with texts from Samantha. Now, for context, Samantha and I were never close. Mostly because she treated me like her personal backup plan whenever Daddy wasn't available to bail her out. So when I saw her name pop up, I already knew this wasn't a "How are you, big bro?" conversation. Her first message? "Brandon, can we please talk? Dad told me you're being difficult." Difficult. Bro, imagine not wanting to hand over your house being labeled as difficult. I ignored it. But Samantha wasn't giving up that easily. She followed up with a full essay. "I don't get why you're being so selfish. You know I'm struggling, and Dad's just trying to help me. You already have a good job, you could get another place easily. This house would mean everything to me. Oh, so now my success is the reason I should just hand over a 6-figure asset like it's a spare hoodie?" I left her on read. That's when the calls started, first Samantha, then Charles jumping back in, leaving voicemails full of fake concern mixed with thinly veiled threats. One gem from Charles. "Brandon, I spoke to a lawyer friend. If you're not willing to cooperate, we'll explore our legal options. This isn't just about you, it's about family obligations." Bro, legal options? Against me? For owning my own house? I couldn't tell if I should laugh or start drafting a thank you card to my actual lawyer for the paycheck he was about to earn, shutting this nonsense down. Sophie, my girlfriend, was watching all this unfold and finally said what I was thinking. "You need to end this. They're not gonna stop until you make it official." She was right. So, I called my lawyer and explained everything, from Charles's attempted break-in to the harassment campaign Samantha was now leading. Within 24 hours, we had a cease drafted and ready to go. I sent it over to Charles and Samantha, along with a very clear message. "If either of you contacts me again about MY property, we'll handle this in court." You'd think that would be enough to scare them off. And for a moment, it was blissfully quiet. But entitled people don't like being told they're not above the law. A week later, I got a letter, yep, an actual letter, from Charles, pulling out the nuclear guilt trip. "If you go through with this, consider yourself out of the family. Don't expect to see a dime when I'm gone." Ah, the classic. "I'll cut you out of the will." Threat. The funniest part? I was already planning to go no contact. Charles acted like he was delivering some devastating blow, when really, all I felt was relief. But I wasn't done yet. If Charles wanted to play hardball, I'd show him how someone who actually understands boundaries handles things. It was time to make this separation official, legally and emotionally. So after Charles pulled the classic, "You're out of the will," guilt move, I didn't flinch. Not because I didn't care, but because at that point, I'd already grieved the relationship I thought I had with my father. The real Charles had shown himself, and honestly, I didn't want a cent tied to his name. But this wasn't just about money or wills anymore, this was about protecting myself. That cease? Yeah, it was just the warm-up. I met with my lawyer again, and we moved forward with a formal trespass notice. If Charles or Samantha set foot on my property again, it wouldn't just be an awkward shouting match on the front lawn, it'd be a call to the cops and a trip to court. The notice was delivered, official, certified, no room for misinterpretation. I even included a little bonus packet, photos from my security cams, showing Charles and the locksmith at my door, and screenshots of Samantha's lovely guilt texts. Just in case they wanted to pretend they were just concerned family. The response? Radio silence. No calls. No messages. No handwritten. How could you? Letters. Which should have felt like peace, but it was just the eye of the storm. A week later, my grandparents called me, people who usually stayed far, far away from family drama. They said Charles had been making the rounds, telling everyone I was trying to destroy the family, that I'd stolen the house out from under Samantha, and that I'd turned my back on family values. Bro, family values? From the man who tried to stage a real estate heist with a random locksmith? My grandparents knew better, thankfully. They told me they were proud of me for standing my ground, and that I wasn't the first person Charles had tried to manipulate with money and guilt. Charles had pulled similar stunts with his own siblings back in the day, always using family loyalty as a tool to control people. Except this time, it didn't work. Because I wasn't playing along. Then came the final move, the one that told me everything I needed to know. I got a voicemail from Samantha. Not apologizing. Not backing down. No, this one was gold. I hope you're happy. You've ruined Dad. He's not sleeping, he's stressed out, and you're making everything harder than it needs to be. I hope your precious house was worth destroying the family over. Yup. There it was. Classic golden child deflection. Not one word about what they did wrong. Just finger-pointing, victim-playing, and this idea that I'm somehow evil for not giving in to their fantasy where the world revolves around Samantha. I didn't respond. Didn't even save the voicemail. I just forwarded it to my lawyer, added it to the case file, and went on with my life. And for the first time in years, I finally felt like I had control. Not just over my property, but over my boundaries, my peace, and my future. But the final nail in the coffin? That came a few weeks later, when Charles tried to slither his way back in under a different disguise. After weeks of silence, well, silence sprinkled with Samantha's passive-aggressive voicemail, I thought maybe, just maybe, Charles had finally realized I wasn't playing his game anymore. But entitled parents? They never quit. They just rebrand. So when I got an unexpected knock at my door one Saturday morning, I checked the security cam, because after everything, you best believe I wasn't opening up without knowing who was outside. And there he was. Charles. But this wasn't the smug, entitled Charles the First was used to. No, today he came dressed in his best costume, the concerned father. Arms crossed, but not defensive, more like, I'm just here to talk vibes. Head slightly bowed, probably practicing his pity face reflection in the car mirror before walking up. I debated ignoring him. But curiosity won. I stepped outside, keeping the door firmly half-closed behind me. Because fool me once, right? Charles started with a heavy sigh. Like he was carrying the weight of the world. Spoiler. He was carrying the weight of his own bad decisions. Brandon. I've been thinking a lot about everything. Oh, here we go. He launched into what I can only describe as a masterclass in fake apologies. I realize now that maybe I pushed too hard. I just wanted what's best for both of you. You know how much pressure I'm under, trying to keep this family together. Notice what's missing. Yeah, any actual ownership of the fact that he tried to steal my house. Then came the real reason for his visit, hidden under layers of faux regret. I just want us to move past this. Maybe we can come to some agreement? I don't want lawyers involved. We're family, after all. There it was. This wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation tactic. Charles wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry that it didn't work. I let him talk, nodding occasionally, just to see how deep he'd dig this hole of self-pity and manipulation. When he finally finished his monologue, complete with a sad little, "You know I love you, son," I smiled. Not because I was moved, but because I realized something powerful. When someone like Charles pretends to apologize, they're expecting you to fold. They think throwing a few hollow words your way will erase months of betrayal. So I gave him exactly what he wasn't prepared for, calm indifference. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'm glad you've had time to reflect, Charles. But there's nothing to move past. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done here. He blinked, clearly thrown off by how unbothered I was. He tried again. Brandon, don't be like this. Think about Samantha, think about the family. I laughed, couldn't help it. I did think about family. That's why I'm protecting myself from people who only show up when they want something. I stepped back inside and, without another word, closed the door in his face. I watched through the peephole as Charles stood there for a few seconds, probably waiting for me to come running back out with some, "Wait, Dad, let's talk," nonsense. But that moment never came. Eventually, he walked away, shoulders slumped, not because he felt guilty, but because he realized his last card had been played, and it failed. I called my lawyer just to give him the update, because it's always good to keep receipts. Sophie was proud. My grandparents? Even prouder. But Samantha? Oh, she wasn't done sulking yet. A few days later, she decided to send one final message. The kind that proves entitlement isn't something you grow out of when you've been spoon-fed your whole life. A few days after Charles tried, and failed, to win me over with his Oscar-worthy fake apology, I thought the saga was finally dying down. I was wrong. Because when golden children like Samantha don't get their way, they don't self-reflect. They don't think, "Hey, maybe I shouldn't expect my brother to hand over a house because Daddy said so." No, they double down. So when I saw an email from Samantha pop up, subject line, "You'll regret this," I already knew I was in for a treat. I opened it, partly out of curiosity, partly because I figured my lawyer would get a kick out of whatever nonsense she was about to spew. And man, she did not disappoint. The email was a masterpiece of entitlement, a blend of guilt-tripping, gaslighting, and delusion that only someone raised on constant praise and zero accountability could produce. Some highlights. "I can't believe you'd ruin our family over something as stupid as a house. Dad was just trying to make sure I wasn't homeless. You made everything harder than it needed to be. You've always been selfish, Brandon. You act like you're better than us just because you worked a little harder." And the grand finale. "One day, when you're alone, you'll realize you pushed away the only family you had." Bro. I laughed out loud. Because reading that email didn't make me angry, it made me grateful. Grateful that I wasn't stuck in their warped version of reality anymore. Grateful that I'd set boundaries and stuck to them. Grateful that I wasn't the one still living in a world where family meant take. Sophie read it over my shoulder and just shook her head. "She really thinks you're the villain here." Of course she did. In Samantha's mind, I wasn't her brother. I was the obstacle between her and the life of freebies she thought she deserved. I didn't bother replying. Didn't send a snarky comeback, even though I had some great ones lined up in my head. I just forwarded it to my lawyer because at this point, Samantha's delusions were starting to look a lot like harassment. After that, I blocked her email, her number, and every social media account I could think of. Not out of spite, but because peace isn't something you negotiate with people who thrive on chaos. Weeks passed. No more knocks on the door. No more texts. No more locksmiths trying to change my locks. For the first time in forever, I could actually enjoy my house, the one I worked for, paid for, and defended like a champ. And the best part? I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Because when you grow up in a family where saying no is treated like betrayal, learning to protect yourself feels like rebellion. But in reality, it's survival. I spent the next few months focusing on myself, upgrading the house, hosting friends, living the life I earned without anyone questioning whether I deserved it. Charles and Samantha faded into the background, exactly where they belong. But before I could close the chapter entirely, I had one last moment of reflection, something that made me realize just how far I'd come from the kid who used to bend over backwards for a family that never appreciated him. Have you ever looked around your life and realize how much calmer everything is, simply because a few people aren't in it anymore? That was me, sitting on the back porch of my house, drink in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky like a scene straight out of a movie. No voicemails. No guilt texts. No golden child drama threatening to invade my peace. Just silence, and for once, it felt like the best sound in the world. It took months of chaos, manipulation, and straight-up attempted theft, but I finally got there. And not just physically, emotionally. I realized I didn't lose a family. I just finally accepted the truth about the one I was born into. Charles never saw me as a son, just as the responsible one. The safety net for when Samantha burned through her 15-second chance. Samantha never respected me because she was never taught to respect anyone who didn't hand her things on demand. And me? I spent way too long trying to prove I was worthy of love from people who only offered it when it was convenient. But that's over. Now I live life on my terms. I protect my space, my peace, and my property. I learned that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say isn't, "I forgive you." It's, "You're not welcome here anymore." And if that makes me the villain in someone else's family fantasy, so be it. Because I'd rather be the villain in their story than the victim in mine. Sophie and I are doing great. My grandparents, the real MVPs of this whole thing, are proud of me. And my lawyer? He's probably taking a vacation thanks to the hours I clocked in his office. But best of all, I can finally enjoy the home I worked my butt off to buy, without wondering if someone's gonna try to steal it out from under me just because they share my last name. And Reddit, I'll leave you with this. What would you have done if your father tried to hand over your house to your sister, and then guilt you for not going along with it? Would you cut ties or try to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I know I'm not the only one who's had to choose peace over family. And remember, sometimes protecting your future means letting go of your past. Catch you in the next one, Reddit. Stay strong, stand your ground, and never apologize for choosing yourself.